Well, hey, Lighthouse, welcome to Friday. You made it through another week. We have a fun question, a reason for a good discussion today. The email starts Athanasian Creed, verse 38. I'm going through the creeds and confessions and wondering about the line that says, He suffered for our salvation, He descended to hell, He arose from the dead on the third day. Is there any scripture that talks about Jesus descending to hell? Where might this idea have come from? In my head, it was either heaven, Abraham's bosom, or hell, or maybe he was back in omnipresent mode for 3 days. Great question. So the Athanasian Creed is probably a defense of the Apostles' Creed. The Athanasian Creed I know less about. It comes to prominence like in the 12th century, but Athanasius died in the 300s, and so probably Athanasius didn't have as much to do with the Athanasian Creed as we might assume. The Athanasian Creed is probably a defense of the Apostles' Creed, but to talk about Jesus descending to hell, we don't need the Athanasian Creed because that line goes all the way back to the Apostles' Creed. And so in the Apostles' Creed, of course, written in Latin, that line is in there, just copied from the Apostles' Creed and put in the Athanasian Creed that he descended to hell. So those are Latin words that the word for hell means hell, inferno. And so it is a good question to say, well, is that a biblical idea? Well, yes and no. So there's a lot of language stuff we have to get through to have even close to a complete answer. But let's look at what the scriptures say. And of course, this is not exhaustive, but it's pretty good representation of what the scriptures say. Ephesians 4:9 says it this way. In saying he ascended, what does it mean that he also descended into the lower regions of the earth? So they're talking about Jesus' participation or Jesus' action after his crucifixion, talking about the ascension, saying, okay, to say he ascended means he descended to the lower regions of the earth. That doesn't say hell. It doesn't say Hades. It doesn't say Gehenna. Those words simply mean the lower regions of the earth. So we can talk about that at another video, but nothing about hell there. Okay, Acts 2:31 says, He foresaw and spoke about the resurrection of Christ, that he was not abandoned to Hades, nor did his flesh see corruption. So there's another passage that some people would cling to and say, okay, Jesus was not left in Hades. So Hades is a Greek idea that feels a lot like Sheol in the Old Testament, which is just the place of the dead. So the idea, and we think about this a lot with the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, that Hades, or the place of the dead, would include paradise or Abraham's bosom, and then also the place of torment or the place of torment. So neither of those are really what we mean when we talk about hell, which we would talk about the eternal state of the damned. So 1 Peter 3:18-20 says this, For Christ also suffered once for sin, the righteousness for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, because they formerly did not obey, when God's patience waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. Okay, a lot of discussion about this. And so to understand, and I've made videos about this and we could talk about it more if it'd be helpful, but this is really Peter latching on to the book of Enoch, to the writings of Enoch, and talking about, Genesis 6, where the sons of heaven that make babies with the daughters of man, and this race is produced, and those rebellious angels, there's a special attention to them given in 2 Temple Judaism. They're the watchers. They're the rebellious. They cause all kinds of problems on the earth. And they were imprisoned for their particular rebellion in the time of Noah. So that's why the time of Noah is referred to here. So Peter says, look, when Jesus went to Hades, which is all over Scripture, we can find lots of scriptures that Jesus died a real death and descended to the place where dead people go, and proclaimed to those angels in prison, referring specifically to that group of rebellious angels in Genesis 6, and proclaimed to them, or preached to them, the question that in the writings of Enoch that come up are them saying, hey, we've been in prison for so long, can we have a second chance? And Peter is very clear to say, as Jesus descended, and those questions of, hey, can we have a second chance, might have come to him, Jesus said no. No, redemption is for humanity, and those angels who were rebellious in Genesis 6 will continue to be punished. 1 Peter 4:6, just another line, and this is another chapter over, and this is maybe a little more difficult. For this is why the gospel was preached even to those who are dead, for that though judged in the flesh the way people are, they might live in the spirit the way God does. And we would say, oh, is this Jesus giving dead people a second chance? No, read it carefully. That's not at all what's being said. Jesus is going and proclaiming the good news to people in Hades. We would say these are believing people, Old Testament saints and New Testament saints. After their earthly life is over, they have been judged the way people are. Peter's saying, look, all of us are going to die. We are going to experience decay. We're going to get old. We're going to die, and we will go the way of all men. However, Jesus, as he is talking to people in the place of the dead, in Hades, is proclaiming good news to them, the gospel, that while they were in the flesh judged, they will be resurrected like Christ, that they will be spiritually alive even though their physical life has ended. So what do we make of all of this? Even I would bring up the point as we're talking about the creeds, that more modern versions of the Apostles' Creed would have taken out the line, he descended to hell, and have put in the line, either he descended to the place of the dead or descended to Hades, or you'll even see some say he descended to Gehenna, which is, these are more biblical concepts. That Jesus, the big idea is this, that Jesus died a real death. That he did not avoid anything that you and I would avoid. He actually paid our price, actually died. He did not swoon and live. He did not avoid any of it, but rather he actually died. He actually bodily rose again, and that is the guarantee. This is the proof, our great hope, that while our bodies will experience death, we will go where dead people go. We will also be raised with Christ. So, while the Bible talks a lot about hell, Gehenna is the word that that gets translated hell mostly. As Jesus talks about Gehenna, he says, if your right eye causes you to sin, throw it away, because it would be better for your eye to be thrown away than for your whole body to go to Gehenna. And this is the sort of the way that this is used over and over again, is Gehenna is a place to be avoided. Gehenna was a garbage dump, a place where animals, a real place outside of Jerusalem, in a valley where animals would be burned, where trash would be burned, even human remains would be there. It was constantly on fire. The stench was incredible. And Jesus latches onto that picture and says, I cannot tell you how much you want to avoid punishment in the next life, how much you want to avoid what is awaiting those who reject Christ in the next life. So we can talk about the eternal nature of Gehenna some other time. Mostly when we talk about the eternal state of the damned, we're not talking about Gehenna. We're talking about the lake of fire, and whether that is a place of eternal judgment, or whether that is a place where souls are done away with, actually have spiritual death. I've made videos about that, and we can keep making videos about that if you want. And the big idea there is more than being a camper, more than saying, this is the camp I'm in. Why don't we just listen to what Jesus said? There is life, and abundant life available for you in the next life. There is also distance and punishment available for you in the next life, and you get to choose. So I would say a better way to translate, or a better way to articulate those creeds, would be that Jesus descended to the place of the dead. How that exactly works out, there's great discussion. But Jesus did not avoid real death. You and I are not going to avoid real death. But Jesus conquered death, came out of the place of the dead. His body did not decay. His soul was not left in Hades, but rather he was resurrected to new life. And you and I in him will be as well. All right. Be loved.